looking at Fundrise.com. It's a real estate investing platform that's been around since 2010. Hey, I'm Rebecca. Thanks for joining me on the Mama Lorian Way, where we're just looking to make our lives richer. I had a suggestion to do a review of Fundrise.com. It's a wealth tech platform where investors, non-accredited, accredited investors can put their money to work in pools or funds or REITs, trust, real estate investing trust, to gain 6 to 12% return on their money. And I just wanted to look at it, pros and cons, what works and what doesn't. Here we are on Fundrise.com. Now, Fundrise is a company based out of Washington, D.C. They've been around since 2010. They're actually the first company to successfully crowdfund a real estate investment. And what they offer on their site is ways that you can invest as little as $10 up to over $100,000. They have different levels into real estate trust and real estate funds. So you're always investing into a portfolio and not a single investment, which is a little bit different than some sites like Realty Mogul, where you can invest in REITs if you're unaccredited, or if you're accredited, you can invest in single properties. Well, Fundrise kind of takes that due diligence aspect out of it for individual properties because they're pooling the assets together, and you can select your risk reward kind of treatment that you want. Fundrise, here it is, Future of Real Estate Investing. Just as a company overview, they have over 200,000 investors, $7 billion of transaction value, and over $160 million given back to investors as investment returns. So how it works. In this, your portfolio is powered by high-quality, resilient assets. So they have incorporated single-family homes, which is pretty interesting. They just got a huge funding in 2021 to invest in single-family homes in the Sun Belt, but also multifamily homes, and they even have a tiny smattering of commercial, commercial could look like industrial, which is really super hot right now. If you can get your hands on it at a good price, I would go for that. Just my opinion, not advice. Your returns are maximized through a low fee approach. Their fees are actually pretty low, and they are up to 1% of every $1,000. So what it would look like is $10 for each $1,000 you have invested for a year. So if you have $1,000 invested, your total fees for the year is $10. That's pretty awesome for the management and for you just getting, you received a dividend. Woohoo! So if you have $100,000, obviously that's like $1,000 a year. Take the fees into consideration, but you are getting service for those fees. Who can invest with Fundrise? Any U.S. citizen residing in the U.S. who is over 18, no accreditation required, which means you don't have to be a high net worth individual, like a net worth of over $1 million, or be making a certain amount. Anybody can invest. Is it a long-term investment? Absolutely. So this is a little bit different. I did something on Stairs, which is a Savesting platform where you can deposit and withdraw at any time. When you're investing into these, you want to think of long-term, and it's usually we think of investments in 5 years. So your money is probably going to be tied up for at least 5 years, thinking of your future self. Liquidity, you might be able to get your money out. It's not going to be totally like you can't do it, but you may have to pay to get it back. What investments? This is their plans, and you can kind of tailor your investments to what your strategy are or where you're starting. They have a starter plan, initial investment $10, basic plan, initial investment $1,000, and then your access to certain things grows the more you invest. Most popular initial investment $5,000, which is in line with Realty Mogul for their REITs. Advance over $10,000, premium over $100,000. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but invest via your IRA or your self-directed retirement fund, starting as little as $1,000 investment, which I think is pretty interesting. Their fees are too. I'm going to talk about that in a second. What you decide first, you decide if you're going to invest a little, if you're going to invest a lot, or some continuum, and then we'll start looking at the strategies. I'm not going over their whole site because it's really extensive. So it's private real estate, which means it's owned by private people and being paid for by private people. What I find really interesting on this site, besides the fact that you can start with as little as $10 in the IRA opportunity, is these investment strategies. So they have a tier, fixed income, and each investment, like maybe it's a house or a multifamily, is graded for this strategy. So it can be fixed income, lower risk, potential return lower, core plus, higher risk, a little bit higher return, value add, of course a little bit more risk, a little bit more potential of return, longer holding, and then opportunistic, higher risk, higher return, but a lot of these you may not see any return for 2 or 3 years. So you can diversify, meaning do a little bit of each according to your investment strategy. Here's their portfolio. Their strategies looks pretty balanced between fixed income, core plus, value add, and opportunistic. So you're getting a mix and a balanced portfolio of different strategies. And I am not sure if you could say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to bet a lot of stuff on opportunistic. I'm pretty sure they may allot your money in a different way, but I'm not 100% sure. Property type, mostly apartments, some single family. Again, they got a big boost of money to invest in single family homes in the Sun Belt last year, 2021. And then some in commercial, which I think is pretty good because you cannot get into a commercial investment without being accredited or having a lot of money unless you do it in a pool like this. They have all the projects listed, individual projects in the portfolio, which I think is pretty cool. So here, for example, stabilized apartments in the Woodlands, Texas, outside of Houston. It says it's core plus. You could go through, view details. They tell the strategy that it is, the size, if it's active, market analysis, the project timeline. Acquired it in October. Probably updating, maybe stabilizing some rents, whatnot, and then they just keep updating on that. So you could, if you're real curious, go through and look at a lot of the individual properties. All right, so when we go back and we were looking at the starter, basic, core, advanced, premium, you can invest via your IRA or a self-directed IRA. So this is a little bit different than the IRA or the 401k that you may have with your employer. You have to give your IRA funds over to an IRA custodian, and then you can decide where you want to put those funds in a true self-directed IRA with a self-directed IRA custodian. Now the thing with those, there's 2 things that I found with our self-directed IRAs. One, the fees are super high, and I got to get an investment that's really paying well to justify some of the fees that we're paying. And 2, a lot of my investments I'm looking at are at least $25,000 minimum, and I can't get all of our accounts up to $25,000 to make investments in the self-directed. This is what I find the most interesting about Fundrise, is you can create a self-directed IRA within Fundrise, and it's managed by the IRA custodian Millennium Trust Company. They charge an annual asset fee of $125, which may sound like a lot, but as far as fees go for self-directed IRAs, I'm like, that's awesome. This is my favorite thing about Fundrise. I'm not a client, maybe yet. I've got my eye on it. $125 for an annual fee. It's awesome. Then on top of it, you can get your IRA fee waived if you invest $3,000 or more, or you achieve and maintain an account value over $25,000. For your IRA, you could start it with $1,000, start investing. Maybe you start it with $3,000, you don't even have a fee. You can invest, have it come back into your IRA, and keep reinvesting, and it's kind of a set and forget. That is my number one interest in Fundrise. Fundrise is also interesting for people who may not know how to do the due diligence on a single property, or not have interest in doing the due diligence. I can understand that on a single property to invest a chunk of money into, because you need to know who you're dealing with. Fundrise has a very long, strong track record. And what I didn't say, let me go back. What are your returns you're looking at with Fundrise? Here is looking at kind of goals that you might be seeing in these different strategies. So fixed income, maybe 4 to 8% return annually. Core plus, maybe 6 to 10% return. Value add, 8 to 12% return. Doesn't always mean you're getting income. It means it's like the income plus when they sell. And these are all pooled together to create the full return. And then opportunistic, 10% plus return. And you may not get any income on that. It may do the return, give you the return on the sale. As far as track record for Fundrise, annual returns of client account, average income return, that means money back in your pocket, 5.4.2%. They did a heck of a lot better in 2021 and 2020, not so much. Average returns of client accounts, 2021, big year for a lot of real estate, almost 23% back. But in 2020, 7. Returns are going to fluctuate, but as a general thing, doing better than public REITs, doing better than public stocks over the past 5 years. Where are my big thumbs up on Fundrise? IRAs. Their fees are low. Their fees can be waived, and you can start investing in a self-directed IRA with not that much money, which has been a big barrier, an obstacle for us in our investing because we haven't had like $25,000 in an account where you could put in $3,000, pay no fees, and start investing right away. Interesting pro, maybe, is it's a fund. So you're not investing in an individual property, although they have all their individual properties listed that you could look at and kind of do due diligence as an overview of the fund. So it's good if you don't have the inclination or the knowledge behind doing true due diligence on real estate and apartments and commercial. Cons. Cons, I can't tell really what their return is. If it's only 5.4%, that doesn't seem to correlate with their track record. So I wish they were a little bit more transparent on what your return is. If you could, I would get on a call with a strategist, because I bet they have them, and ask about what is the true return. Thanks for giving me a suggestion about Fundrise. Like, subscribe, put in the comments anything else you'd like for me to talk about or investigate. Always live your life richer.